Boots on the ground in Iran is seeming less theoretical, perhaps more inevitable with every passing day. We found out earlier today that Pentagon officials have apparently made detailed preparations for deploying US ground forces into Iran, according to multiple sources. Now, bear in mind, Donald Trump is still sort of denying it. He told reporters in the Oval Office yesterday, "No, I'm not putting troops anywhere." But then he added, "If I were, I certainly wouldn't tell you." I mean, they're just the media. They're just tasked with making sure that the American people know what the hell is going on. Why would he tell them? And bear in mind that while he's appearing to make you think that perhaps we're not going to do that, he loves saying we're not going to do something right before doing it so that he can surprise the Iranians as if they're not preparing for this anyway. And earlier today, when he was asked about a ceasefire with Iran, he said, "Why would I need a ceasefire when we're obliterating the enemy?" So I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's done anytime soon. So let's jump more into the reporting about the preparations that are ongoing and what form it might come in. The military has apparently held meetings to prepare how to handle the possible detention of Iranian soldiers and paramilitary operatives if the president decides to put American boots on the ground, including where the Iranians would be sent. Now, bear in mind, Pete Hegseth, of course, said there would be no quarter. So if we take him at his word, there will be no prisoners. We will put them to death. Now, I imagine that Pete Hegseth is a bloviating moron and doesn't know what that word means. I hope we won't commit even more war crimes, but that remains to be seen. And we do know, we've been giving you updates on the different ships that are moving into the region. We do know that they're preparing to deploy elements of the 82nd Airborne into the Middle East region. 3 warships and about 2,200 Marines departed California earlier this week. That was the second such Marine unit sent since the war began, and it could be a few weeks before it's in place. The first was sent from the Pacific, and that one is still making its way into the region. Now, that said, were we to put boots on the ground, what form could it come in? What a lot of people think is the most likely is that they would take over Karg Island to potentially sort of like, I guess, ransom it back to the Iranians in exchange for opening up the Strait of Hormuz. Of course, it's not far from the Iranian mainland, meaning that any soldiers that would be dispatched there, and it would have to be many to take that island, they would be fully in range of drones and missiles and all of that. They would be sort of sitting ducks. So that's definitely a concern. Now, that said, it could also come in the form of special forces going into the Iranian mainland to try to recover nuclear material. We've heard about that. We've also heard, if you jump to graphic 8, they're preparing for everything. Could be Karg Island. If he decides to have a coastal invasion, that's going to happen. But that decision hasn't been made. That's an anonymous senior Trump administration official floating the possibility of a coastal invasion. And now you might be wondering what that is. A coastal invasion of Iran is an invasion of Iran. That's what it is. It's Iraq all over again. Yippee-ki-yay, Cenk, what do you think?
Yeah, so we covered this yesterday where Brian Kilmeade was trying out a new Israeli talking point, which is, no, if you land on an island, that doesn't count as ground troops. Is that a thing? So attacking islands don't count. The Japanese are thinking, hey, what? We attacked Hawaii. Why did that count? It was an island. Okay. Yeah. So, all right, I don't know if they're being intentionally hilarious, but honestly, the Fox News audience couldn't figure out how to tie their shoes. So they probably believe it. They're like, oh yeah, if you land on the ground, but it's an island, of course it doesn't count. Like we can invade Australia anytime we want, and then even if we use ground troops, we wouldn't be using ground troops because of Australia's an island. This is so asinine. I mean, but honestly, wait. You're about to find out the most asinine thing, which is what Donald Trump just said. I just saw it, breaking news. I'm gonna share that with you guys in a second. But you know that, and there's a prediction coming here, guys. This is, I'm gonna give you this is a guaranteed prediction in a minute. But when Trump says, now if I was gonna do it, I wouldn't tell you. That's already 100% of the time that he has said that, he has gone on to do that thing, okay?
Yeah.
And he always thinks that it's clever. It's not at all clever. When you say, if I was gonna do it, I wouldn't tell you. We all already know that that means you're gonna do it. That's what you did every single time. He's so dumb, but wait. It's not even close, because wait till you hear what he just said. He said the Strait of Hormuz is not gonna be a problem. Why? Because, quote, it will open itself. what on God's green earth are you talking about? And he said, once Iran stops clogging it up, it'll open. Of course, that's the whole point. We're at war with Iran, and Iran has clogged it up. And so, what do you mean? What is that? What language are you speaking, you moron? But wait, every layer gets worse. Then he said, no. Like, I mean, it'll open itself up, and once Iran lets us through, yeah, when you stop attacking them. And then he said, but it's okay, we still need our NATO allies, and we need China to help us open it up. Wait a minute, we're letting the Chinese ships go through. They're partners with Iran, and because we don't want oil prices to skyrocket more, Trump made the decision earlier, that's okay, we're not gonna bomb the Chinese ships as they go through, or ships going to China to give them oil. So why would China join you in opening up the strait when the strait's already open for China? Like, he has no idea what's going on. He's making Biden look young and dynamic. Like, this is like, I don't know if it's dementia or just Trump being as stupid as he's always been. But the bounds of reason, we have like their president. Well, first of all, their leader's dead, right? The first thing is Ayatollah. Let's keep it real on that. So guys, that's the other thing. Please don't get tricked by this. You know this, right? Just because we can decimate their facilities on the ground and we can decimate them from the sky and in the water doesn't mean that we've won. You have to land your troops in to get rid of the regime, or to get the enriched uranium, or to stop their missile attacks from the Strait of Hormuz, because the ground is so close to the Strait of Hormuz, etc. So like him constantly saying, and in fact, they asked him about it. They said, you said yesterday, quote, the war was won. So then what are we still doing there? And he says, quote, we knocked out their Navy, their Air Force, anti-aircraft, we're roaming free. All they're doing is clogging up the strait, but from a military standpoint, they're finished. Well, if they're clogging up the strait, then they're obviously not finished from a military standpoint. And second of all, if they're finished from a military standpoint, fantastic, let's come home. Everybody's a winner, right? Our president is a buffoon, and he's like number one humiliating us for the rest of the world. They're like, the mighty America picked this moron who's like, the strait will open itself. And the Chinese that are already going through will randomly join the war on our side. Like, he's on a different freaking planet. But much more importantly, guys, in our reputation in the world, which is already like pulverized. And that has real ramifications, economic ramifications, because people are starting to make trade deals around us. But the practical consequences of this war is when you have a president who is detached from reality and his IQ is in the teens, you're not gonna make the right decisions. That's why we're not making any of the right decisions now, including going in the first place, and including the fact that we're about to send in ground troops. So anytime that you think it's as bad as it gets with Donald Trump, it's always gonna get worse, John. So guys, I'll end on a guaranteed prediction. We are putting the ground troops in. So end of the debate. You'll see nonsense debate on TV and all over media going forward, but that's just theater. It's already baked in, right? So we've already sent the 2,500 troops, 82nd Airborne. Now we're sending another 2,200 from the USS Boxer leaving California. Now it was supposed to leave 3 weeks later. They're sending it in a panic because they're gonna put ground troops in. You don't need to move up the schedule by 3 weeks if they're not gonna go on the ground, if they're not already going to go in that direction, right? So, and I've never seen them move all of these ships and all these troops into place and go, never mind. In like 25, 30 years of covering news and politics, I've never seen that. Whether it's Russia or us, when we amass troops somewhere, we send them in, right? Now we're also sending in the USS Tripoli from Japan. That's within days of arriving, and it's possible that about 2,500 from there, and the 2,500 that's already there might make landfall, and then the Boxer would back them up. On top of that, Axios and CBS News, both with, let's just say, excellent sourcing in Israel. In other words, it kind of are Israel. are saying ground troops are on their way. So that means the Israelis have already ordered us to send in ground troops, and the ships are already on their way. So they're not gonna bring them all the way there and then turn around. We're definitely sending in ground troops. Write it down in stone, it's over. The rest is just theater to make you think that there's a question left when there is no question. They've already made the decision and the disaster is on its way.
I think that you're right. I mean, your point about what happens when they send them over is, I think, indisputable. Venezuela, they didn't send over the Armada for nothing. Iran, they didn't send over the Armada for nothing. They ended up using it. The massing of troops on the border with Ukraine, of Russia, where they were like, this is just military exercise or whatever. No, they didn't waste all that money for nothing. They did it to use it. And I think it seems like inevitably it's going to be a massive disaster, but Donald Trump thinks he can do no wrong when it comes to the military. I think he has been convinced, whether by Stephen Miller or Hegseth or Benjamin Netanyahu, Lindsey Graham, it's gonna be great. No soldiers are gonna die. And I think some of them, like this is my read on Stephen Miller, I think they think if some soldiers start getting blown up, we lose 100, we lose 1,000, then the American people will fall in line because now Iran has killed our fighting men. That's my fear, the dark, bloody calculus that I think some of them are doing.
Yeah, and John, I'll add one last thing to that. But there's also a second part of it. If you don't fall in line, then the arrest will begin. And they'll start to call you enemy of the state. You're working with aiding and abetting the enemy. They're already kind of road testing this with Tucker Carlson and Joe Kent, and that they'll amp those up a lot. Now, their problem is, and why it was so important to get Trump voter allies that are independents and some portion of MAGA, is because if they have all the Trump voters locked up, that was the majority in the 2024 election, then they'll be able to arrest anyone they want and get away with it, okay? And lock down and bring the surveillance state here at home. But if enough of the Trump voters rebel and join the rebellion that already exists with independents and Democrats, then they won't have enough political power to be able to pull that off. That's why the political war at home is so important, because it's both about defending our way of life and actually defending the homeland and our Constitution, but it also can help to expedite ending this war so less Americans die.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.